Okay, continuing on. If you notice that your server did reboot and it finished up some more installation, and now it's going through more of the configuration of the Elastix part. The operating system's all done. Now it's configuring the server portion of it. Keep things very simple. We have the MySQL root password. Password would be a good one. Just to confirm that you're doing it correctly, reconfirm it. I'd be writing these down somewhere as well, so you know what the accounts are for different things. It's like, okay, MySQL uses root, and now it's looking for the root user. The user that you're logging into MySQL is root, because sometimes it's like, well, do I log in as admin? Do I log in as root? Do I log in as MySQL? So you need the username and password, so knowing what you're logging in as. So here's an admin account. Let's see here. Several Elastix components have administrative interfaces that can be used to the web. A web login password must be set for these components in order to prevent unauthorized access. Make something really secure and secret, such as password. So this is for the web components, and you're logging in as admin. So the admin and then password. And it's having you confirm it. Password again. Okay. So next you come to the localhost login screen, correct? We should be logging in, when we log in on Linux, and we're going to be logging in as root. And the password that we set should be password. And we are, in fact, logged in. Now, normally we don't have to log in. As soon as this is up and running, it's actually running all the services behind already that we need to be having functioning. But there's on occasions that you might have to do something on your server. One of the primary reasons for logging in also is that it does confirm your IP address, so 172.16.207.0. Unfortunately, if you just turn on the computer, it doesn't show you what your IP address is. So it's just like, oh, what is it? I can't remember what it is. How can I connect to it if I don't know what my IP address is? You do have to log in. Also, there are ways of shutting down your server from the interface that we're working with, but we don't need, but there, you might run into a situation where you want to be doing it for the command line, and you have to log in order to do a shutdown. If you type shutdown, I'll have to do a shutdown. No, we don't do sudo, but I do have to do a shutdown now. Okay, shut down now. Let's see if it powers off properly. And it's not actually closing it. Let me see. Yeah, I should probably do an H. So okay, let me do the root shut down now -H. So that should halt it. Okay, that actually powered it off. So yeah, make sure you include the -H. It does shut it down without that. You just have to then close your virtual machine underneath power and shut it off. So I guess halting would be the better way of doing it. Sorry about that. Correct. -lowercase h. Mm-hmm. That halts the system. So that's the way of bringing up the server and shutting it down, all from the command line. You can do other commands from there if you need to change user accounts, if you need to, check the IP address. You can actually, if you know your ifconfig commands enough, you can change your IP address as well. If you end up changing your server to another network and you can't connect to it, you can do it through the command line as well. We're not going to be doing a lot of stuff under there. That's about it. In fact, other than starting our virtual machine, everything else we've done management through remotely. So I'm going to start my machine back up. Oh, that's a great idea. Excellent, Todd. Todd gets bonus points. While it's down, take a snapshot, because that's as base and as clean as a system as you can get. We have done nothing with it. We haven't even logged on to it essentially yet. You can take off, use the ISO image under the settings, you're saying? Sure. It will always boot to the hard drive first, so it's always going to be picking up your installed version first. That is excellent, Todd. I'm going to put that in my notes, in fact. Have to log back in. Shutdown now -H. And when you're done, bring it back up. That's it for the server side of the actual install. Now we have to configure it. VM, snapshot, take the snapshot. Base image, clean install. All passwords are password. Normally you document your passwords. Post-it notes. Just in case you forget. I keep mine hidden underneath my keyboard so nobody finds it there. But I forget that it's there, so I put a post-it note that says passwords on our keyboard to remind me. Bullet board. Passwords. Paul, remember your passwords are hidden underneath your keyboard. right there. What's nice about this is because we don't need to interact with this can easily be done on a headless server, basically no monitor. It can be done on a virtual machine. In fact, mine's sitting on a virtual machine. It just runs. I don't even connect to it. I power it on. I do other administration remotely for it. And just like a server should be, you really shouldn't be having the whole graphical interface, full-blown system. Let that be done remotely. So I don't even have to log on to the system in order to use it. Yes. Oh, that's a really funny question. I've asked the same question. Yes, the question was why, if servers are supposed to be headless or as simple as possible, why is Windows Server 2012 look like Windows 8 with the whole applet, whatever thing, the formerly known as Metro interface. Don't know. I guess in case you want to run it on a touchpad tablet, and that would be your server then or something. That because we want a consistent interface from our watches to our cell phones to our mainframe servers. Of course, they have to look and act the same because people can't figure things out if they don't look the same. I guess I don't know. I've wondered that. If you've noticed, though, Windows since 2008 has really been pushing, and I went through some training and stuff like that, they're definitely pushing for server core. And server core is, in fact, what you're looking at. You power it on, there is no graphical interface. You get a black box, and it says PowerShell on the top with a blinking cursor. So it is, definitely that direction. But, they're going that direction, but still, and it's kind of two extremes. I have the whole Windows 8 experience, or I have the blinking cursor. Can't we have something in the middle? Anyway, so I don't need to log on to here at all. I can do everything remotely. So I'm going to go to a web browser. And because I took really good notes, I know what my server's IP address is, and I can simply type that in, 172.16.207.0. And I hit enter. Onto your server through a web browser? Oh, on your desk. Oh, if you log, that's fine. It doesn't matter. So he's saying I logged in to my server. Is that a bad thing? No, not at all. I'm just saying you don't have to. All you have to do is hit the power button, let it do its thing, and then let it sit there all the time if you want. So we don't have to do that, though. I have to figure out what screen. Okay, it does come up with a security certificate error. Your server doesn't have a security certificate. Normally you would. We're not going to, be getting certificates for all these computers, obviously. So just be aware of this message coming up. It's not a bad thing. Proceed anyway. It comes into the Elastix login screen. If you took notes again, the username for the web-based portion is admin, not root. And that's where it gets confusing. You have Linux with root, and then we have different systems with admin. And then we have our password of password. And this is our server. Do you want to save the password? I'm going to say no. I don't want to save a password for my server. That's not a good idea, so you can walk up to your system and just log in. Not that we couldn't anyway by changing the IP address, but that's not the point. So just a quick little overview of Elastix itself. This is the dashboard screen. This is where you always come into. There's the dashboard applet admin of what goes where and what you want to see or do whatever, but I'll just take a look at the applet screen to begin with. Here's the system resources, your swap file usage, which is kind of like your virtual memory. It's not using any of that. It's using 7% of my 2 gigs that I allocated to it, and my CPU is running at 13%, which is actually really high, and I'm not sure why that's high. Normally it's like 1 or 2%. Yours is 11, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that. You can refresh it by the little click on the upper right-hand corner. You can refresh it. Maybe it's just a different system I run at home, but I'm running, definitely less than 5%. I'm sorry? Mine's only 1.6 gigahertz. What's yours at? Oh, I need a different processor. Yes, this is my laptop, but I'm fine with it. It also does have lots of different services. It has telephony services. Oh, 1 second. Yes. Okay. Just taking a look at that real quick. So I have different services. I have telephony services, which is the main thing. Elastix adds other things to it as well. We have instant messaging, so you can actually, peer-to-peer type things. They have fax services, email, so it has email in there. Databases, not sure what you do with that. Web service and Elastix call center. It does show you more details of your resources, such as your hard drive and how much is being used. And this is news, and this is being updated live from just from the internet. So you can see that these are current things, like, well, semi-current. That's the wrong date. This is from 2013 on January 15th. 2013, January 7th. Okay, so they haven't updated anything in a week. Okay, this isn't a daily news release. This is a, once or twice a month. If you it can show your simultaneous calls. Right now, it tells you your simultaneous calls, your CPU usage, and your memory usage. And this will be a little chart. So you can see that everything's really, really low. As you start having calls or simultaneous calls, you'll have green spikes of showing where the calls are. As you start using up your CPU, right now it's like way in the bottom. It's 9% right now. It'll start going up or down. And the same thing with memory as you do more and more things. So that's a cool little chart because it has all that information together. Lots of tabs, lots of different functions and features. If I click on our networking, this is where, if you messed up something, as long as you can connect to it, you can change it. It's always easiest to change a network settings before you move it to a new network because then it's all configured. Otherwise, you have to get your client changed to a static IP address to connect to it and so on. If you want to change this, you do need to click on down here, Ethernet 0. So I click on Ethernet 0, and this is how I can change my subnet mask or my IP address. So, Jim, you have a question? You can change that's how you change the IP address subnet mask. Obviously, you can't change the MAC address. But you can edit other network parameters as well. This is the name of the host and also other things like default gateway and the DNS settings. The default gateway and DNS are saved under network parameters, and we click on the device when we talk about IP and subnet mask, though. So if you ever can get to that, that's where you do it. DHCP server, IP address, and so forth. If I click on users, these are the users that can access the Elastix server and then what they can do. We're not going to play with this at all, but as you can see, here's the admin account, but you could create another user, Lisa, Tom, Sally, and then what level of authorization they have. This is where you shut down. It's under the System tab because it's a system operation. If I click on System and then Shut Down, this is where you can either reboot your system or you can halt it. And it does just turn off your virtual machine. So it does that -H for you automatically. So I don't, other than demonstrating the shutdown process, I've never done the shutdown on the server. I've always done it through the interface here. Same thing with rebooting. If you do an update, you need to reboot, you can do it right from here. Be aware that when you reboot or anything like that, that everybody would lose their connections. So if they're using the phone, this would definitely be an after-hours thing. Or a planned maintenance, at noon we're going to reset this, so, but you can't anticipate incoming calls, unfortunately. It's like, oops, sorry, Hardware detector updates, backup and restore. You can back these up, and you can perform a backup. In fact, you can even do it for an FTP backup. If you do a regular backup, it's going to, back up locally. It doesn't do much good if your drive dies. The FTP backup takes a snapshot of the settings of your server and puts them on an FTP server somewhere, so it's off of that system. The machine dies or whatever, all you have to do is just get the system back up and running, and then you do a system restore, and it puts all the configuration settings, user, and all that together. And then we have a preference tab, which date, time, currency, language, that kind of stuff. Languages they support, lots. Portuguese, Polish, Deutsch, and so forth. We have other things across the top dealing with, we talked about those other services off the dashboard, like telephony services. That's a little bit better, 6.9. Telephony, fax, email, all those are across here. Instant messaging. We will not be using those. Maybe we might get into like an email or something. I really, really doubt it. We'll be focusing almost exclusively on the phone part, which is right here, which is PBX. And then obviously it has all the sub menus underneath here, and it even scrolls over. Get over there. So those are the sub menus that we're working with. Just so we can do something with these today, under the PBX configuration, which is the first tab, these are the things that we can work with. And the very first thing it comes up with is add an extension. And that's what we want to do. We want to be adding extensions. This would be the equivalent of creating a server, a Windows Server 2012 or 2008, and creating users. So far we have the clients. We built a PC. We put an operating system on it. We configured it, and now it's just sort of hanging out there. Now we built the server, but we need to make user accounts for these users or clients to log on to, and that's what we do. So we can click, we want to add an extension, so we click submit. And it's kind of like filling out a user properties of a user account. First of all, is the user extension. Now this has to be a number because that's what we'll be calling. And we can start out like with extension 100, say. The display name is how it's going to show up in the, you can follow along as well. The display name is just how it's going to show up in the address book or the phone list on the server. So I'm just going to type Paul. In fact, what I want you to do it this way. For a user extension, put a 1 and then your 2 digits for your computer. So it'd be like 131, 142, 123, whatever. And then put your name in there. And again, my computer 0. So I want the username. Basically, this is how they log in. This is how it shows up. And I kind of scroll on down. The device uses SIP technology, which is session initiation or initiated protocol, which is just the voice over IP standard. The secret is your password. So this is your username so 100 with a username, and then secret would be the password. And unfortunately, they don't even keep it secret. It's plain text. Well, it's not plain text. It's encrypted, but it shows right up on the screen. So be careful where you're doing administration for people to be able to see this. So if people access this, they can see the passwords right from here. And then scrolling on down, voicemail. We're not going to do anything with voicemail or the locator, and we just click submit. And so here's sort of our user list over here. Yes, password for secret. Correct. Now, anytime you make any changes to the Elastix server, it's going to have this pink banner across the top. It says apply configuration changes here. Now, you can make lots of changes before you do that. The same thing, though, if I apply the configuration changes, it will clear the people that are on phone calls. So it only takes that second, but you want to wait until there's a lull or a break or something like that you can just quickly apply those. So you sort of make all your changes, and then you apply them all at once at some time. But now this extension should be configured. Well, now right now we just have one phone, that we have next to us, and we have our server. So let's get our phone to log on to our server. So let me go to my phone, which would be 172.16.207.100. And there's my phone. Across the tabs across the top, we actually have 4 accounts that we can work with, 4 different places that you can log into. So I can log onto my server, onto your server, onto a different extension on my server. I have 4 different individual accounts, and those are the line 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the phone itself. We'll be working mainly with account 1 because that's what shows up on the screen. That's what shows up on the actual LCD screen on there is only account 1 information. You can still use 2, 3, and 4, and they'll ring 2, 3, and 4, but it'll show that information. So it's a little bit easier to work with. First of all, the account name can really be anything that you want. If you want to make it the user's name, that's fine. It can be anything. This is going to be important, though. It's going to ask for the SIP server address. Now, normally it would be like sip.mycompany.com. We're not using DNS, so it's going to have to be the IP address of your server. Fortunately, we have that documented, and we know that it's 172.16.207. Mine is 0. Mine happens to be 0. Now I'm going to go through this kind of quickly, and I'll come back to this just because I don't want to lose my settings. The SIP user ID is how I'm logging on to the server. So it has to be, it's basically the login name, which is 100. The authenticate ID is a different ID. We don't need to worry about that. We do need the authenticate password. So this is the username that I created, 100, and the password of password. And I just spelled password wrong. Your ID is going to be different, but your password is going to be the same. But your SIP server is also going to be different. So I want you just connecting to your server right now. So I'm going to go through this. And then name is what's going to show up on the phone. So that's what's going to show up on the screen saying like whose extension that is. Okay, I want to go through these. And again, I'll come back to this after I save this. Oh, let me just save it now. Okay, now I can stay here for a second. The SIP server is 172.16.207 dot your server number, which should be 13. Your SIP user ID is the user that you created right here. You created an extension. I created 100. You created 113, correct? Okay, so you created 113. And you put a password in of password. And then put a name as far as what's going to show up on the screen. And I'm going to put in Paul. You put in Todd. Going through this a little bit, though, there's a couple changes that I want you to make. So, and I'll come back to this again. I just don't want to lose these. Okay. Kind of skip. Okay, down here, past a whole bunch of yes and no's and a couple like 1 second, 4 second yes and no's, it says send DTMF, which is a dual tone modular frequency, dual tone multi-frequency. So when you hit the push buttons, you actually get 2 tones on there, and that's how computers on the other end know what button you pushed. We do need to add this extra checkbox via RTP. Remember those RFC things we were talking about before? Those are just a different standard. So we do need to include that. Continuing down, it says call log. It says log all calls. Well, because of what we're going to be doing, we're all going to end up with all kinds of missed calls, and that's just silly to keep having to clear that. So the second log option says log incoming and outgoing only. So missed calls will not be recorded. Now, you will miss the call then. You don't know the person called, but it's definitely to your advantage to select that. So again, the things I changed were send DTMF, make sure you include RTP, and then the call log, which is a little bit further down, to log only incoming and outgoing calls. Caller request, force time, force invite, account ringing. Okay, another section down here, sort of towards the bottom, a whole bunch of yes, no questions again. you have two options down here. We're not going to work with them right now, but it says allow auto answer by call info. Allow auto answer by call info. We do want that to be a yes. That's going to work later on when we're working with intercoming and paging. So intercoming and paging will require that. So allow auto answer by call information, and then turn off the speaker on remote disconnect. Now there's two advantages for that. One is for paging and intercoming, but also if I hit the speaker button and I'm having a conversation with you, when the other person hangs up, my phone automatically hangs up as well. So turn off my speaker when the remote party disconnects. So that's one feature. The main reason is for paging and intercoming. And then everything else stays the same. And let's see if I took too long. Oh, I didn't. Good. So I saved those settings. So again, we have the top section. Sort of towards the middle, we have send DTMF via RTP. We change the call log. And then down towards the bottom, we allow auto answer by caller information, and then turn off the speaker on remote disconnect. And then we click update, and then we can reboot. Now taking a look at the phone when it reboots, that's a bad sign. All those settings, by the way, under the accounts, anytime you set up any account, you're going to need to be adding those extra features to have the things that we're working with. And it's just like any kind of user. So you create a Windows Server person, you know, for work in our environment, I need this setting or that configuration or that option. So, oh, come on. My phone's not behaving. Okay, a couple things here. One is you'll know that you're connected to your server properly by a couple different ways. One is your name and your extension are going to be bold. If it's just normal text like Tuesday and your IP address, you're really not connected to your server. The second way of knowing it is in the upper left-hand corner. That little server network connection icon needs to be filled in. Then you didn't type it in right. So something's wrong. You're not connected to the right server, you're the wrong password, something. So this has to be filled in, and these have to be bold. Another way of looking at it is from, I have no idea where I have too many windows open here. Oh, Elastix, here we go. Another way to know it is I can go back to my Elastix server and click on the operator panel. And it shows my phone. I thought it turned green. That might be a different version. Oh, flash operator panel. That's the one I wanted. Sorry, wrong operator panel. It moved. So over on PBX, way over on the right-hand side says flash operator panel. This will be green. If the phone's not connected, it won't be green. So go ahead and take a look at those. I'll give you a few minutes to sort of fix those and make sure you get connected and you actually get a green connection, and you get not only a green connection, but this filled in and this bold. So let me come around and help you. Going back under the extensions again, so I have a user created. If I don't click the apply button, that person never got created. So they're sitting ready to be done, but you have to click apply before they're actually ready to be used. So like they're just not there. To review the extension stuff for each user, the user extension is equivalent, put this in your notes somewhere, equivalent to a username. So, you know, if P Benfield is my login name, you know, for a Windows server, my user extension would be 123 or 141 or whatever my extension is going to be. My display name only shows up here. It only shows up on this list, and if you call in for caller ID, I'm sorry, for 411 information, it uses that name as well. So you can put anything you want, however you want to be done. So those are the two things you would enter up in the top field. In fact, I'll make 101, and then the display name of Paul 2. Scrolling on down, I need the secret, which is the user's password. And then I want to make, oh, that's all I have to do. And then I click submit. But again, make sure you click apply here. The whole point of building servers is to actually share, and if we don't have multiple users logging on to sharing, it's not going to do us much good. So I want to make sure that you could log onto your own server. What I've done now, though, is created a user account for each of you on my server so that you can all access it. So we can also use a second account, a second line if you want. It's not going to show up on the phone, you know, on your screen that way, but you can use the second line on your phone to have a second phone system. And I'm trying to think what the best way to do that. Just for ease for right now, what I want you to do, we won't use a second line, let's use line 1 for today. Go ahead and log in, and everything should be the same as far as your the SIP username, because you should already have your SIP username of your account, which would be like 121, 122, 123. The only thing that you should change is your SIP server. So instead of point into your server, point to my server. Do it on account 1. Do it on account 1. It'll just be a lot easier and a lot clearer to work with right now. And then next week, when we start getting more confusing, then we'll add account 2. So just, you're changing account 1. Not all your stuff. The only thing you're changing is your SIP server. What? What's the question? Yeah, the account name. The account name really doesn't make any difference anywhere. The only thing that really matter is this is the server I'm logging into. This is the user ID I'm using to log onto that server, and this is the password that I'm using for this user ID to access this server. Does that make sense? You have a server, username, and password. So you're changing your server, the SIP server. And then you click update, and then you reboot. Now, if I look at the flash operator panel, I should see who's connected and not connected. Now, I didn't type all your names in just for speed, but I can certainly go back and change those as well. But no, 0. My server is 207.0. The SIP ID stays the same, and so as your password stays the same. So this is a neat feature right here, this flash operator panel. Tells you who's connected and who's not connected. If you notice while watching, if somebody's calling somebody else, it'll actually, right here, it shows that it's off the hook, and it shows it's ringing, and it tells who they're calling. So 125 is calling 131. Now they hung up. 145 looks like they called themselves. How did you call him, Wes? No, okay, don't use quick IP anymore. Don't use any IP calling. That's peer-to-peer stuff. That's like old school peer-to-peer. We're doing client-server stuff, so only call with the extension. 112, correct. Don't dial the direct IP stuff. Don't do pound 112. We're just dialing extensions. So I still don't have you, Todd. So again, now that we're on a server, now we can interact to each other, but everything's going through the server. Direct IP, like peer-to-peer file sharing, I'm going directly from one computer to the other. Now I'm doing other sharing. Everything's being managed through the server. So it hits the server makes the connection to whoever I want to. Now, nothing's really changed so far as, what can you do? You can still call the person. It's just a little bit easier because you don't have to dial the 3 digits. You don't have to do the pound or direct IP or anything like that. But we add extra features starting next week of what things you can do only with the server. So everybody's connected. It looks like it's good. So questions or comments of what you learned today? Just the same way we just did right now. Exactly what we did. And like I said, this is what we do. This is what I do. I don't use this exact model, but I use the Grandstream phones. They're pretty inexpensive. I have a network connection. I plug them in, and then I have a virtual machine running that server software, and that's it. How are we doing what? Oh, outside you're saying? That is in the future. We're getting there. That's coming up. So we're just doing the migration of, just listen up just for a few seconds left. Okay. We're doing a migration of personal computer. We worked with the phone by itself. We had an operating system. We upgraded the operating system. We configured that specific standalone computer. Then we moved to networking in peer-to-peer, which is direct IP calling. So we can do direct IP or the quick IP, but either way, that's a peer-to-peer environment. Now we're expanding to a client-server environment where we have a client and we have a server. And we'll be spending quite a bit of time on the server portion because it's like Windows Server. It's just like, okay, I got connected, great. Now let's move on. Well, no, there's a lot to it. So there's a lot of features and functions that we'll be working with on the server side of things. Then finally, it's, okay, now that I have this client-server environment, how can I get out to the internet? And that's where we're progressing as well. Progressing with the phone system is, okay, I have a standalone phone, I have a peer-to-peer phone system, now I have a client-server phone system. How do I get out to the POTS system, which is the internet of the phone world, which is where all the other devices are? Even other voice over IP systems. So you could call into another voice over IP system, but it gets carried across the POTS system just like it goes across the internet to get to another company. I'm going across the POTS, plain old telephone system, to another voice over IP system. So, that's the internet of phones. So we're going to get there, and we have a voice service provider, just like we'd have an internet service provider, to give us that connection, and then we have to configure our server to be able to be the gateway to get out there and do that. So we're spending a couple, probably a week or two, just on, probably 2, maybe 3 weeks, just on server services, though, because there's a whole lot more to it than picking up your phone, dialing 134, and then giggling and then hanging up, So as fun as that is, there's a whole lot more. A whole lot more. Yes? No, this software is completely free. It's open source. Yep. And if you're running as a virtual machine, there's no hardware cost. You know, you can run it on any computer that you already have running at home. The only thing you have to buy, and even that is, if you just for convenience, is the phone. And these phones are about $50. You can buy cheaper ones, but these are definitely cheap phones. If you want a nicer phone, then you're looking at probably $50 to $100, but you can get a decent phone. If you want really nice ones, like the Cisco phones, you're looking at about $300 a phone or something like that, and that just gets kind of crazy. But you don't even need a phone. You could do all of this through existing computers. You can use what's called soft phones, which is just an application running. You know, what's on here? An operating system, an application, and a speaker, and a microphone, and a keyboard. You already have that in front of you right now. It's just a different form factor. So that would mean it'd have to be on, though, and then you'd have to use it that way and whatever. So, but you're leaving this computer on all the time. Right, right. But I run other virtual machines anyway, so having another virtual machine doesn't cost any more. Three isn't any more expensive than running two because it's just a virtual machine. Yes. Well, okay, you need two things. You need an internet connection for the data, in order for the data to even transfer anywhere, but then you have a voice over IP provider, a voice provider, that provides the service across the internet that can then connect you from your phone system to the POTS system. So you kind of need both. You do need still an internet service provider because you need the data to go across there, but they need a provider to connect you then to the POTS system. And that's who gives you a phone number. They're the ones that, you know, the 920-682-1234, they give you that number. So when people call that, it gets routed to your phone system and goes that way. I know that's the really fun and cool part, you know, and we'll get to there, but we're going to work with other services first. So it can be cheaper. It can be more expensive. You know, you have to watch your pricing and how you use the calls. For us, it's less expensive overall. You know, but, you know, we use it a certain way. And so, you know, sometimes they get, you know, unlimited calling and, you know, either way, or sometimes it's metered. Like you get free incoming, but you pay per minute for outgoing or vice versa. You can have different plans with different rates. Some have really good international rates, so I'm going to use them for international calls. And you can do that all with, you know, well, that's what's really nice about the programming. It's just like the router programming. If it's going to that location, let me use this provider. If it's going to that location, let me use this provider. So it's kind of like router configuration at you know, at some level. So, what'd you learn? Anybody learn anything? Phones are annoying, yeah. Okay, what else? Being very, very careful. There's a lot of settings. No. Okay, we'll see ya. Yeah, nothing due for next week. We're just going to continue on with the services. Make sure that you have your servers. We'll probably be starting out with, you know, you still connecting to me. When you unplug your phones, it'll retain all the settings. Presumably, you better know how to program your phone, though, in case a setting is lost or corrupt or something like that. So having all those notes. So actually, you know, when I talked about no assignment for next week, that's not technically true. I want you updating your notes. I want you to be giving really, really good notes and procedures for how do I reset a phone, how do I program the phone, how do I do peer-to-peer calling, how do I set up the server, how do I log into the server, how do I create user accounts on the server. So we actually covered quite a bit. Upstairs today is snacks. I don't know what bingo. I know there's snacks. There's tacos, I think, cheese and chips or nachos. That's it. Nachos. And then tomorrow is root beer floats or something. So I arranged this just for you guys. I was thinking of you, and I'm even letting you out early to get up there so you can be first in line before they run out. Okay. Have a good week.